It is 2 p.m. in Homs in Syria. It is 6 a.m. in Kingston, Jamaica. I'm Monita Rajpal. This is World One, live from London. But first, a Syrian government minister has become the first high-ranking civilian official to defect from the Assad regime. A video posted on YouTube on Wednesday appeared to show Deputy Oil Minister Abdul Hussam al-Din announcing his resignation and saying he was going over to the opposition.
For this, I decided to join the voice of the righteous, despite the notion that this regime will burn my house, harass my family, and will invent many lies.
Al-Din's visit came after Syria had spent several days refusing to let her into the country. CNN's international media, I should say, continued to face heavy restrictions in Syria. CNN's senior international correspondent Nick Robertson is following events from Lebanon, and that's where he joins us now with more. And Nick, what did Miss Amos see?
She saw very few civilians, very few people on the streets. That seemed to be the overriding message. What she heard
Nick,
was
thank you. Nick Robertson there in Beirut for us. We want to share with you some of the headlines that we're seeing about the events taking place in Syria. A strong line in today's Zaman in Turkey with this headline: Syria's barbarians must be stopped. It's a comment piece that goes on to say the barbarians in Damascus have a free hand. They are killing the opposition one by one without any fear of intervention from the outside. The lightly armed opposition has no chance whatsoever against the brutal killing machine at work. Well, in Malta, the headline in the Times is agony and strife Syria faces. It's an editorial written by a former Israeli foreign minister, and it goes on to say the regime is now facing its moment of truth. The disintegration of Mr. Assad's iron rule into a bloody civil war shows once again that the disorderly collapse of dictatorships tends to foment inter-ethnic war and national dismemberment. And Arab News in Saudi Arabia is focusing on minorities in Syria with this headline: reassurances for Syria's minorities. It's an analysis piece that says, as for what is said and repeated about this being a Sunni revolution, this is not in the interests of Syria, its people, or the region as a whole. The tyrant must be punished for his crimes, and our region must turn the page on this dark chapter. We have a chance to give you a closer look at the horrors of life in the city of Homs and the experiences of the people at a makeshift clinic. Some of our correspondents who've been there spoke to CNN's Michael Holmes.
CNN's Arwa Damon, Neil Hallsworth and Tim Crockett are in Barbarama.
About progress for Greece, with a deadline only hours away, major European banks and pension funds are throwing their support behind Thursday's high-stakes bond swap. Greece now says it is optimistic that participation will reach 75%, which is well clear of the two-thirds target. CNN's Jim Bolden explains who's in and who's holding out.
When it comes to Greece and the euro crisis, there is always a deadline. Banks and hedge funds have until Thursday, 8 p.m. London time, to decide whether to take a big loss on the Greek debt they hold and swap it for new debt. Those banks and hedge funds are deciding if they should voluntarily take a 53% nominal loss on their holdings. In reality, many are losing more than 75% of the value of the Greek debt that they hold. But that's, of course, considered better than getting nothing. We already know that many banks have agreed to the swap. Some big banks, including Deutsche Bank, Allianz, and BNP Paribas, have said they will take part in this swap. Now, Greece was hoping to have 90% or more of their bonds swapped. Now, that seems unlikely. There are holdouts. Greece said Tuesday that those who don't sign up should not expect Greece, in the end, to pay them back in full. So lawsuits are sure to follow this process. Now, if less than 90% of the bonds are offered for this swap, then Greece has the right to force the remainder to take this deal, like it or not. That's what's called a collective action clause, or CAC. If it falls below 75%, Greece says the offer will be revoked. Now, that would create market havoc because this offer needs to go ahead for Greece to get its massive $160 billion bailout. Ideally, this swap will cut Greece's $230 billion debt by half or more. That would save it some $4 billion a year that otherwise would have been spent on debt repayments that can instead go to help rebuilding the economy. Jim Bolden, CNN, London.
We want to bring you some breaking news that's coming out of Syria right now, or I should say more out of Cairo. The French news agency AFP is saying that Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General and now an envoy to Syria, he is in Cairo meeting with the Arab League, and he has said that further militarization will worsen the situation in the country. Of course, we want to get you more on that story, and we'll bring that to you as soon as we have it. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran may be trying to hide information about its nuclear program. Speaking exclusively to CNN, IAEA Chief Yukiya Amano says he believes Tehran could be developing nuclear weapons at undisclosed sites. Libya's interim government has called for calm and unity in response to fears that the country might break apart. Tribal leaders in eastern Libya declared the region semi-autonomous on Tuesday, 6 months after the fall of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. Leaders in the east say they are not looking to split the country, but to run their region locally. The UN Security Council is calling for an end to fighting on the border of Sudan and South Sudan, and says aid workers must be allowed to get into the region. We've been hearing this week about the desperate situation for people caught in the crossfire of a border dispute, and for the families living in constant fear of attacks, help cannot come too soon. For women to get fair treatment go back thousands of years, yet many are still denied basic human rights like education, the right to vote, and freedom of movement. Today is International Women's Day, a day to reflect on the long struggle for gender equality. Well, Women's Day officially began in the U.S. in 1909, led by the Socialist Party. Then in 1911, 1 million women marched to end discrimination in Austria, in Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. In 1917, Russian women began a strike for bread and peace after more than 2 million Russian soldiers were killed in war. Well, the United Nations then recognized 1975 as International Women's Year. Now, governments and organizations observe March 8th as a day to honor women's achievements. Access to education is one of the biggest hurdles facing women in many countries. In sub-Saharan Africa, barely half of the girls go to school. Now people all over the world have had a chance to see what it's like to have to struggle for an education through the eyes of a 13-year-old from Kenya. David Mackenzie reports.
This is not your typical slum story. It's a story of Molly Otieno and her pink and white flip cam.
David Mackenzie reporting there. So with all the challenges women are facing today, can they be overcome anytime soon? Whitney Brown joins us now. She's the Senior Director of International Law and Policy at Amnesty International. Ms. Brown, thank you so much for being with us. Where does, when it comes to a list of priorities by governments, where does education fall?
Well, for women's rights, it should be absolutely at the top of the list. We know that one of the fastest ways to do things like address...
Coming up here on World One, he has been voted World Footballer of the Year for 3 seasons running, and in Barcelona's latest Champions League match, Lionel Messi again showed why he's just so highly rated. Alex Thompson's here with more on that. Not as highly rated as you.
Oh, so sweet.
I know, right?
But it's not about me, it's about him. There are good footballers. Yesterday, but sure to be smiles when he signs for someone else.
One thing I've been hearing and reading a lot about reaction to him is that he's such a classy guy.
Yeah, I mean, he is a man of the people.
Yeah.
All the fans can connect with him, and that's why he was so popular, not to mention the fact he was very, very good.
Yeah, that too. Alex, thank you very much. You are watching World One live from London. And the weather in space, let's go to, and Earth as well. Let's bring in meteorologist Mari Ramos at the World Weather Center. Mari.
Hey, Monita, those images are really amazing, how you see the sun almost shaking.
Yeah. They're gorgeous, gorgeous pictures indeed. Mari, thank you very much. Well, it looks like the weather might cooperate for a royal celebration here in Britain. Today is officially the first day of Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee tour, and she's got husband Prince Philip and daughter-in-law, the Duchess of Cambridge, to help her greet the crowds in Leicester, an English city that goes back to Roman times. Well, Prince Harry, meanwhile, has been earning rave reviews after representing the Queen in the Caribbean. We'll look forward to seeing you when you return from Montego Bay in Jamaica. Thank you so much, our royal correspondent Max Foster there. Well, before we go, we want to share with you one more story. The European Union has had to withdraw an internet ad costing almost $200,000 after complaints it was racist. He said it was not intended to be racist, and we regret it has been perceived that way. You are watching World One live from London. I'm Monita Rajpal. Thank you for joining us. We'll update you the news headlines at the top of the hour right here on CNN.